There's a picture going around. You see there were 7 pipes in the menorah. We have 8. That's not a menorah. That's Chanukah. We have 8 because the miracle lasted for 8 days, right? So therefore we have 8. Therefore you eat jelly donuts on Hanukkah because that donut will burn in your stomach for 8 days. So you remember the miracle of the 8 days. Get it? It'll lay in your stomach for 8 days, that heavy jelly donut, Alfie. Or the latkes. You'll remember those 8 days of the burning oil. Get it? What? But why Dafke did the menorah in the temple have 7 pipes, not 6 or 14?
7 days in the week.
7 days of the week. So Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz says that the 7 pipes in the menorah are keneged 7 chokhmat, the 7 sciences. Here we'll talk about that. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, the great Mekubal, said that the 7 pipes in the menorah, David, represents the 7 natural sciences. Now what has that got to do with anything? The Rambam says in Hilchot Yesod HaTorah that there's a mitzvah to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? There's a mitzvah to love God. How does one express his love for God, says Rambam? Many ways. One way is, says Rambam, to study the Chochmat Hashem, to study nature, to study science, says Rambam. When a person studies the beauty of nature, says Rambam, miyad, immediately he's madly in love with the one above. So according to the Rambam, in Hilchos Yesod HaTorah, chapter 2, one is obligated to study nature in order to fall in love with Hashem. You hear? So it's actually a mitzvah to study nature by studying the sciences. We'll talk about that. And according to the Rambam, when you're doing that, you are Mekayim V'Hafta Hashem Elokecha, loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, so it's based on this Rambam, somehow the 7 pipes in the menorah represent, Alfie, the 7 sciences. We'll talk about that.
So, Rabbi,
yes.
I take science courses in college or whatever.
You're loving God. Ooh. But mitzvah tzrichas kavana, Reb Ruvain. Mitzvah tzrichas kavana. 2 people can be studying science, Rabbi Yaakov. One guy will be doing a mitzvah, and the other guy will be just, Depends if you're having kavanah. If I'm studying science to fall in love with Hashem, to see the incredible wisdom of nature, then by studying science, I'm loving God. Otherwise, Now, there's an amazing Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim. How does the Rambam know that? Remember, anything in the oral Torah, Rivka, has to have a source in the Chumash. How does the Rambam know that he's right? That by studying nature, you're loving God. So Rambam says there's a pasuk in the Chumash, in Moreh Nevuchim, he quotes the pasuk in Parshas Kitisa. There, Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Already know kvodecha." He says, "God, show me your glory." Right? In Parshas Kitisa, Moshe asks God, "Show me you. Show me your glory." So what does God answer him, Alfie? What God says, "Ani avir kol tuvi." I will make all of my goodness pass in front of you. And then you will see what's behind me. What is God telling him? Moshe says, "God, I want to know you. I want to see you." So God says, "Ani avir kol tuvi." I will make all my goodness pass in front of you, and then you'll see me achorai. Says Rambam, what is God telling Moshe Rabbeinu? If you want to see Hashem, if God is only talking to Moses, it wouldn't be in the Chumash, because the Torah is not a history book. The Torah is God's authorized manual for living in the here and now. So God is speaking to us through Moshe Rabbeinu. God says, if you want to see God, study Kol Tuvi. Study all my goodness. What does that mean, all my goodness? Study my world. My beautiful, good world. The incredible chachma that goes into the wings of a butterfly or a snowflake. No 2 snowflakes are alike. Study Kol Tuvi. Study all my goodness. Says, it's a pasuk in Parshas Kisisa, Ani Avir Kol Tuvi. remember, Pasuk, look at Parshas Kisisa, it's a Pasuk in Exodus 34. Ani avia kol tuvi. Study my goodness, which Rambam Moreh Nevuchim says means study the incredible goodness that what is found where? In the Bria. So if you want to know Hashem, to know Him is to love Him. They got that from us as well. Oh, I'm dating myself. If you want to know Hashem, to know Him is to love Him. How do you know Him? By studying God's goodness. Read the Tachorai. Then you want to study. If you want to know God, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu to us in Exodus 34, Parshas Kisisa, when you study the incredible Chokhmah and the goodness that goes into nature, that's how you come to know and what? Love Him. Wow. So madly in love with the one above is, so you take Science 101 and you have Kavana, David, you're doing a mitzvah. Which mitzvah?
Loving God.
Loving God. Boy, I'm glad I came today. Wow. A Jew can study science and do the mitzvah of loving God. Who said so? The Rambam. Hilchos Yesod Torah. And backed up Yonis and Eibeshitz. And now we're going to get into the 7 sciences. Rabbeinu Bachya says, what are the 7 sciences that are represented by what? The 7 branches of the Menora. And by studying them, Rabbi Yaakov, you're getting credit for loving the boss. Wow. Because God says, if you want to know me, Exodus 34, I will pass all my goodness in front of you. My goodness is God's good, beautiful world. So if you study the natural sciences, you're loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, according to the Rambam Moreh Nevuchim. By studying the 7 sciences that correspond to the 7 branches of the menorah, what are they? The 7, well, it's all connected. The 7 heavens, the 7 sciences, the 7 branches, what are they? So Rabbeinu Bachya tells us, the first science is Chochmas HaHegyon, the science of language. Chochmas HaHegyon, science of language. HaHegyon. Logic, but he calls it language. And then the second science is Chochmat HaMispar, mathematics. The third, this is Rabbeinu Bachya, the great Mekubal, the third science he calls Chochmat HaTeva. What's Chochmat HaTeva? Physics and chemistry. According to Rabbeinu Bachya, if you study physics and chemistry with the right kavanah, you're madly in love with the one above. Ooh. What? Okay, we'll talk about it. Oh, can we talk? Chochma, so number 3 is Chochmat HaTeva, which is physics and chemistry. One second. Chochmat HaMidot, that's geometry. Number 5, Chochmat HaNigun. Music. Wow. Dance to the music. Wow. Yes, Shirley. I'll back up. Number 4 is Chochmat HaMidot, geometry. Number 5, Chochmat HaNigun, music. Music. Number 6, Chochmat HaTchona. Chochmat HaTchona, which is astronomy. And number 7 is Chochmat Elohut, study of God. Ooh. Number 7, Chochmat Elohut, is the study of Judaism, or study of God. Achroin Choviv, right?
Could you do just the first 3?
Sadoshi, 1 minute. Let's see. Says Rabbeinu Bachya, you look at the menorah, the pictures going around, there are two papers there, 2 pictures going around. I'd like to have them back when I finish. If you look, there are a middle branch, and there are 3 and 3 on the side. So, says the Rabbeinu Bachya, the anchor, the stem of the menorah that holds all the other branches together is Chachmat Elohut. That's the anchor. The middle branch, the stem, the anchor that holds all the other three is Chachmat Elohut. Chachmas Hashem holds all the other sciences together. The other six branch out. They all come from the stem. What's the stem? Chachmat Elohim. That's the Ikar. He says it Chachmat Elokut. It's the same thing. Chachmat Elokut, Chachmat Elokim, right? So all the other branches flow and stem from the anchor. Anchors away. The anchor, the middle stem, that's Chachmat Elokut, Chachmat Hashem. And the other six are only branches of the root. But the trunk, the central shaft, is what? Chachmas Hashem. Actually, it's a pasuk, it's a Mishnah Masechta Avot, Peri Gimel. The Mishnah says, so the Rebbeinu Bach is saying, if you're not anchored in Chachmat Elokim, you're just studying the seven sciences for its own sake, you're not getting a mitzvah. You have to realize that all of the sciences are only a branch, an extension of the trunk. What's the trunk? Chachmas Elokim, Chachmas Hashem. Otherwise, the other six have no meaning. What?
They wouldn't have anything to say.
Exactly. They fall off. Actually, Ruvain, it's a Mishnah Masechta Avot Peri Gimel. The Mishnah says as follows. Kol sheyirat chet koidemes pachachmasai. Anyone that is yirat shamayim, his fear and love and wisdom of God precedes his regular wisdom, chachmasa mitkayemet. Then his regular wisdom will have a kiyum. Kol shechachmasai koidemes yirat achet. But a person's secular wisdom, that comes before, he puts that before his what? Fear of God. Ein chachmasai miskayemes. Then his secular wisdom, like Reuven said, has no anchor. It's just floating. All we are is dust in the wind. It has to be rooted, anchored. The Mishnah, Ovos Peri Gimel says that. If your chachma comes before your fear of God, then your secular wisdom and knowledge will not be mitkayemet. It won't have a kiyum. Because it's not rooted, it's not anchored in what? In Chachmat Elokim, or Yirat Chet, which is synonymous. Okay.
Are you going to sing another Kansas song?
Okay.
If you have to study chemistry and physics,
Right.
you need a laboratory.
Right.
Now the Hasidim,
Yeah.
who sitting in the yeshivas, and they don't move away from
Okay, we'll talk, Reb Zalman, we'll talk. But first of all, our chachma, our secular wisdom, whatever the sciences are, can endure only if it is rooted in what? In Chachmas Elokim. It's actually a verse in Psalm 111. Reishit Chachma. What does Reishit Chachma mean? The Ikar of wisdom, Yirat Hashem. Don't we say it every morning, I think? Psalm 111. Reishit Chachma. The chief, the essence of wisdom is Yirat Hashem. That all wisdoms, Alfie, have to be rooted, connected to the trunk of what? The anchor, have to be anchored in Yirat Hashem. Otherwise, if it's not anchored in Chachmas Hashem, then it's Segur nicht wert. No kiyum. And actually, it's a Mishnah Masechta Avot Peri Gimel. The Mishnah says, Im ein yirah, ein chachma. Avos chapter 3. Im ein yirah. If there's no fear of God, which means wisdom of God, knowledge of God, then ein chachma. Then all of the secular wisdom, it's what? Worthless. It's lo shava klum. If chachma is an end to itself, not attached or connected to Yirat Hashem, it's worse than nothing. It leads to Hellenism. It leads into Hanukkah. if it lacks a moral foundation, Chokhmah for its own sake, it's not anchored, connected to the trunk of Yirat Hashem, to Chokhmas Hashem, then it has no moral base, and then it leads to Hellenism. Therefore, when it says in Genesis 1, V'choshech al penei tehom, Genesis 1 says, there was darkness on the face of the deep. Says the Medrash, Zeh malchut yavon. V'choshech al penei tehom, Genesis 1, Abraham, what's the darkness in the world? Says the Medrash, Zeh malchut yavon. This is the Greek Empire. Wait a minute, the Greeks were very enlightened. How could the Medrash say that the darkness on the face of the earth is the Greek Empire? But we know the Greeks were what? Very enlightened. Yes, Aristotle and Socrates were very enlightened. But in their personal lives, they were perverts. You can check it out. The great Aristotle and Socrates of Yavan, great chokhmah they had, but it wasn't anchored in what? In the knowledge of God. So in their personal lives, they were perverts. Because their chokhmah was detached from chokhmas Hashem. So what does Hanukkah teach? That or is only enlightening when it's attached to God's light. Symbol of Hanukkah. So all of the chokhmas out there only have value, only have meaning if and when, Ruvain, they are attached and anchored, David, to the chokhmas Hashem. Otherwise, you see that the great so-called enlightened people, they live lives of immorality. They're deviates and perverts. We see that, right? Since the days of Aristotle and Socrates. Because their chokhmah is not anchored, surely, in what? In Yirat Hashem. Chokhmah for its own sake. The Germans were very enlightened, weren't they? The Germans, very enlightened people. But what good was it? So that is Hanukkah. Hanukkah teaches us that light by itself can be darkness. V'choshech al penei tehom, malchus yavan. Even though physically they had great secular knowledge, but they were darkness because it was not based on what? On what? Chokhmas Hashem, Yirat Hashem, Chokhmas Hashem. So therefore they were perverts, deviates, immoral. And Nebuch, many Jews fell in with them, like in Nebuch J Street, Hellenism. We have a modern day Hellenists, unfortunately. It's alive and well with J Street, unfortunately. But this is the message of Hanukkah. The message of Hanukkah is that the word Hanukkah comes from the Hebrew chinuch. It's a time to get re-educated, rejuvenated. You get it? Interesting. Hanukkah is a time to get re-educated and to realize that, yes, if you're studying science, it's only a mitzvah of loving God. It only has value when you realize that what? That it's all anchored to Chokhmas Hashem. You have great scientists who are atheists. How could that be? They see the incredible wisdom of nature, and yet they're atheists. Why is that? Because they study science, but they detach it from the anchor, from Chokhmas Elokim. So two people can be doing the same science course. One is darkness, and one is light. The same science. Incredible. It depends what your motive is. It depends what? Where your focus is. Keep your eye on the prize. All the branches have to lead to the central shaft, to the ikar, the anchor, which is Chokhmas Elokim. Otherwise, on their own, they can be what? Darkness. Otherwise, they can be darkness.
Rabbi, you said other times before, last week I think it was.
Yeah.
What we get to do, everything is what we get to do.
Right.
Because if we look at it with the proper kavana, we turn it into light. If you look at it without the kavana, it's darkness.
Even though it looks light,
It's the same stuff.
The same stuff. But it depends what your focus, what your motive is, what you want to see in the light. Yeah.
You cannot disprove Aristotelian philosophy.
Right.
God made it so.
The Rambam quotes it extensively. Right? He's Mekadosh. The guy, Aristotle was a pervert. So the Rambam took his knowledge and he elevated it. He brought it home. Bring it on back. Bring it on home. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Where you belong. He reattached it, Devorah, to its source and anchor. Aristotle detached it. The Holy Rambam reattached it to its source.
What aspects of Aristotle?
I don't want to get into that now because my time is limited. But I just want to get in. Does Obama know, who hates Israel, does Obama know that the United States owns its independence to Hanukkah?
Does Obama know that?
Yeah.
I don't think Obama knows anything.
This is in the history books, Ruvain. You could look it up. Does Obama know that the U.S. owes its independence to Hanukkah? You could look this up in the Encyclopedia Judaica. It's been documented. George Washington at Valley Forge. The troops were starving and freezing. You're from England.
Don't ask him, he's happy about it.
Washington was ready to throw in the towel and surrender. So the U.S. today would still be what? Under a colony of the Queen. But he was walking through the camp. It's a true story, Alan. You can look it up in the EJ. He's walking through the camp, looking at his soldier, and he saw in a tent lights. So he walked into the tent. He said, "Soldier, what are you doing?" "What are you doing, soldier?" So he says, "I'm a Hebrew, and today is Hanukkah." And he tells him the whole story. We were outnumbered, outgunned. And yet God made this great miracle against all odds. We fought despite being outnumbered against all odds. We still fought, and Hashem gave us, God, this great victory, and we won our independence. Ruvain, it's a true story. Washington heard that. He said, if you Hebrews can do it, then we can do it. So despite all odds, this gave him the chizuk and the courage to fight, despite being outnumbered, outgunned against all odds, and he won a tremendous victory. And after the Independence War, America won independence, this Hebrew soldier got the first Congressional Medal of Honor. This is a documented story. If it wasn't for that one Yid lighting Hanukkah to Yankel Shmerel, I don't know, whatever his name was, but it's... You hear this? He gave Washington the courage not to give up, to fight despite against all odds against you Brits. So Obama should know this. Why is he picking on little old Israel? If it wasn't for us, he'd still be a colony. Isn't that amazing? This is a true story, Doshi, that the United States of America owes its independence to a Hebrew soldier in the Continental Army. Oh. What? Chaim Solomon. No Chayid. That's not a fake. Chaim Solomon. Now, anyway. Anyway, let's move on. Moving right along. I got to talk fast. The Bnei Yissaschar, my great-great Eltazay that tells me. Now, his book is a Kabbalistic work on all the Chagim. It's nothing to do with Bnei Yissaschar, but he says we have a Kabbalah, we come from Shevet Yissaschar. But the work is a Kabbalistic work on all the Chagim. He says as follows, that the final seal of Yom Kippur, who said that? Don't steal my thunder. Thank you, Rivka. That the final seal of Yom Kippur is not final until what? Until Hanukkah. You hear this? Well, it's based on the Bnei Yissaschar. On this Kabbalistic statement that somehow there's a mystical link between what? Hanukkah and Yom Kippur. What's it all about?
But is this the one that means basically that Jews still can get forgiven all the way to
Yes.
Hanukkah? Okay.
the Last Chance Motel. We still got a chance. It's not closed until Hanukkah. Yiddish Avram. Got an extension. So the Beis Hosker is saying that the seal of Yom Kippur is not completed until Hanukkah. Why?
Because you have all the wax from the candle.
Somehow Hanukkah is an extension of what? Of Yom Kippur. Now, why, Avraham? Why? A Jew answers Akasha with what? The Rambam says that Hanukkah mitzvah chaviva ad ma'od. Here's David. The Rambam is very careful on his words. He does not engage in hyperbole. He says Hanukkah mitzvah chaviva ad ma'od. It is the most precious mitzvah of all. It's not even a Torah mitzvah. He doesn't say that by any other mitzvah. And keep in mind, Hanukkah is only a mitzvah de Rabbanan. So why does the Rambam say it's mitzvah chaviva ad ma'od? Why? I'll tell you. Oh, I'll tell you. But to answer this question, we have to what? There's a mitzvah to put the Hanukkah Menora in the window. How come there's no mitzvah to put my tefillin in the window? Put my lulav and esrog in the window? Put my tefillin in the window? There are many Torah mitzvahs. There's no mitzvah to put him in the window. Ma nishtana Hanukkah. There's no mitzvah to put your Megillah Esther in the window. Ma nishtana Hanukkah, that you have to pursue me nisa, put the candles in the window. You're publicizing the miracle. The miracle of what? The miracle of what?
There's two miracles. One is the war and one is the Shem.
Yeah. But I'll tell you the real, okay, that's true. But the Menei Soscha says the miracle that what? That we all shine on. Ooh. Yom Kippur and Hanukkah, they're mystically linked. What's Yom Kippur all about? Yom Kippur is I'm a soul man. Yom Kippur, I neglect the body. I don't eat, I don't drink, I don't smear myself, right? I don't bathe. I'm focusing what? On my neshama. That I am a soul man. The neshama couldn't care less about eating or drinking. So Yom Kippur, I'm focusing who is the real me? The soul. Because the soul couldn't care less about the physical comforts, right, David? So therefore, on Yom Kippur, I'm making a statement that I am not my bodysuit. That's just my suit. I'm a soul man. The soul couldn't care less about creature comforts, right? You know why Hanukkah is such a precious mitzvah? Why I have to put the candles in the window? The Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, David. There's a pasuk in Mishlei. Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The human soul is compared to what?
Light.
A candle of God. By putting the candle in the window, what am I saying? A similar message to Yom Kippur. I am not my body. I'm a godly soul. But you can't see the godly soul. It's covered up. So by putting the candle in the window for 8 days, I'm extending the message of Yom Kippur. That I'm much more than my body. I'm a soul man. And the soul is representative of Zalma Baner Hashem Nishmat Adam. When Eisosko is saying, therefore Hanukkah is such a precious mitzvah, it's connected to Yom Kippur. It's a similar theme. Yom Kippur points out that I'm much more than my body. The body is not me, it's just the spacesuit that I wear to maneuver, but I'm the godly soul. And the godly soul is represented, Alfie, by Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, the candle. So by putting the candle in the window, what am I advertising? I'm a soul man. Don't confuse my body with me. So for 8 days out of the year, the great miracle I'm publicizing is what? That I'm a soul man. That I shine forever. I'm part of the light of God. that can never be extinguished. When I die, I'm not dying, my bodysuit dies. But I continue, we all shine on. I'm part of God's endless light. Now you know why Hanukkah is such a precious mitzvah? And why it's connected to what? Yom Kippur? Ooh, I'm glad I came today. Ooh, when you light the candle in the window, you're publicizing the fact that I'm a godly soul. But the godly soul is covered up. No one can see it. No one thinks about it. So when you put the candle in the window, what are you publicizing? I'm a soul man. And there Hashem Nishmat Adam Nechama. And the godly soul is represented by a candle. So that should be our focus, what? If you focus on that, of course God gives you a good year. That's the extension of Yom Kippur. If I'm a soul man, that's who I am. I'm part of God's endless light that can never be extinguished. I got a maid in the shade. Therefore, Chanukah's mitzvah chaviva ad ma'od. It's the festival of light. Which light? The light of the Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The pasuk in Mishlei 3. Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The candle of God is what? The soul of man. Wow. Isn't that amazing? Wow. The festival of light, the light of God, the light of Torah, the light of the godly soul. Every one of us has a godly soul. Every one of us has a chelik elahai mimal. That's symbolized, Avraham, by what? By the candle in the window. Why in the window? Who thinks about the soul? The soul is covered up. Right? Feed me, feed me. No one thinks about the soul. 8 days out of the year, you're focusing on the godly soul, which is represented by what? The Ner. That's the connection to Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, I also focus on the godly soul. Not by a Ner, but by abstaining from all physical comforts. Focusing on who I really am. The godly soul couldn't care less about eating or drinking. So that's a similar message to what? To Chanukah. Therefore, the Yom Hadin, the Kvittel, how do you say, the judgment of Yom Kippur remains open until Chanukah. Wow. And therefore, the Rambam calls it what? The most precious mitzvah of all, even though it's not a Torah mitzvah. Wow. Pretty interesting, huh? Right? Now, the most precious mitzvah. We know in Judaism, achron chaviv, saving the best for last. Rabbi Yaakov, we know there's 613 Torah mitzvahs, and there's 7 rabbinic mitzvahs. That's a total of what? 620 gematria keter. Keter, crown of Torah, is gematria how much, David? 620. What's the last of all the mitzvot? There's 613 Torah mitzvahs, and there's 7 rabbinic. What are the 7 rabbinic mitzvot?
Washing your hands.
B'tilat yadayim, making an eruv, Purim, brachos. Did we say Nerot Shabbos? Saying what? Hallel on Yom Tov. And what's the last of the rabbinic mitzvot? Chanukah. Therefore, Chanukah is the most precious mitzvah. It's achron chaviv. I said Purim, right? You have making brachos, saying Hallel, making an eruv, Netilas Yadayim, Nerot Shabbos. What else? Purim. And the last of the 7 is Chanukah. So it's achron chaviv. Saving the best for last. Because it helps me focus who I really am. I'm a soul man. They got that from us too. 8 days out of the year, who thinks about the soul? Right? 8 days a year. You look at that little lechtel in the window. How much is that lechtel in the window? Remember that song? Oh. It reminds me I'm a soul man. The Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, and therefore it is the most precious mitzvah, and that's how it connects to what? Yom Kippur. Wow, yes.
The 613th, without the 7th for a moment, isn't the 613th like something about Torah scroll?
The 613th is to write a Torah scroll.
Right, so they're related there too.
Oh.
Torah, lights, and...
Oh, Ruvain. The last of the 613 Torah mitzvahs is to write a Sefer Torah. Reuven, you're beautiful.
Sometimes.
And, all the time. And the last of the rabbinic mitzvahs is Hanukkah. Hanukkah, the light of Torah, the light of God. The light of the soul. That's what Torah is all about. The light of Torah, the light of God, the light of the soul. We're all connected.
No, the menorah is a symbol of Torah.
That's right. So Reuven is saying that the last of the Taryag is to write of Sefer Torah, and the menorah is the symbol of the light of Torah, which is the light of God, which is the light of the soul, because we're all connected. The Zohar says that what? Yisrael, Kitche Baruchu, Yisrael v'Torah chad, b'yaraita, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Zohar says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Jewish people and the Torah are what? All one. So it's beautiful. The last of the Taryag is to write a Torah. The last of the rabbinic mitzvahs is the light of Torah, represented by the endless light of what? Of the godly soul, which is the light of Torah. It's all connected. Ooh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yisrael v'yaraita chad. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Zohar says, and Israel and the Torah are all one light. And that's what the candle of Hanukkah what? Represents. So it's the most precious mitzvah of all, right? Now, if that's the case, and it is, it's something very strange, David. Purim gets a whole tractate. Hanukkah not only doesn't get a tractate, Shirley, it doesn't even get one little measly Mishnah. Strange. The Rambam said it's the most precious mitzvah of all. It's a rabbinic mitzvah like Purim. Purim gets a whole tractate called Masechta Megillah. Right? Hanukkah not only doesn't get a tractate, doesn't even get one little Mishnah. What am I, chopped liver? It's such a precious mitzvah. So how come there's not only a tractate, there isn't even one Mishnah? A couple of lines in the Gemara. Very short shrift. Very strange.
We don't say Hallel on Purim.
But because the Megillah, we don't say Hallel on Purim, because the miracle of Purim happened where? In Chutz La'aretz. So somehow, the great miracle Purim is deficient, because it happened in Chutz La'aretz. So you don't say Hallel. So you're making my kasha stronger. The miracle of Hanukkah happened where? In Eretz Yisrael. And it's the most precious mitzvah. How come it's not contained in the Mishnah? The silence is deafening, David.
Yes.
You have an answer?
I would guess. I don't know if it's an answer.
Yeah.
Because the light of Hanukkah is hidden. It's the Organus. It's the hidden light. So.
Yeah, but I'm putting it in the window.
That's true.
Our job is to publicize it. So how come the Mishnah is engaged in a Watergate, I think? As a cover-up here, yes? Why?
Hashmonaim הם לא היו בסדר.
No.
They were supposed to be only Kohanim, not
Beautiful. So, what is your name, sir?
There was a book about Hashmonaim. Didn't go, it wasn't accepted.
Megillat Chashmonaim. So what is your name, sir? What is your name, sir?
Abraham.
Abraham is quoting in the name of the Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer is based on a Ramban. The Ramban says that even though the great miracle of the light and the great military victory happened through the Chashmonaim, they were punished. All of them were what? Killed out. Said the Ramban. Why? Because there's a pasuk in the Torah, La Yosser Shevet BeYehuda, that the rulership has to remain with Yehuda. The Chashmonaim were Kohanim. So the Ramban says that after the military victory, they should have handed over the Malchut to whom? To Yehuda. Because there's a law in the Torah that La Yosser Shevet BeYehuda, rulership can only be Yehuda. So the Ramban says because they kept the Malchus, they were Kohanim, Levites, and they were against the halacha, therefore they were punished. Okay?
Temporarily they could have been, but then they...
But after they won, they should have handed over the reins of Malchut to Yehuda, says Ramban, and because they didn't, they were punished. And they were killed out. Based on this, none left. He killed them all. Herod killed them. His own wife was from the Chashmonaim family, Miriam. He killed her. Then he kept her in honey for 7 days, 7 years. A real maniac. A real maniac, this Herod. They're honoring him. I don't know why in the Israel museums are a maniac. But anyway, I want to get to the point over here. So So they say Rav Ram, in the Sam Sofer they say, Rabbi Yehuda Anasi comes from what? David HaMelech's family. So therefore he wrote the Mishnah, so he had a personal vendetta against the Maccabees for what? Stealing the kingship from his family. So therefore, as an act of what? Vengeance, he kept them out of the Mishnah. That's what they say in the name of the Sam Sofer. Rav Soloveitchik Zatzal says, I don't buy it. I don't buy it, says the great Rav. The Sam Sofer never could have said that, Rav Yaakov. There's a lav in the Torah, lo tikon miloi sitor. B'nei amecho. There's a lav in the Torah, not to take revenge and not to bear a grudge. So how could the Sam Sofer say that what? That Yehuda Nasi kept the Maccabees out of the Mishnah, which he wrote, as a personal act of what? Vendetta and revenge because they stole the kingship from his family? The Chaim Sofer never could have said that, says the great Soloveitchik. Never. It's a law in the Torah not to bear a grudge, Alfie. What? They say that he said it, but Chaim Sofer, Rav Soloveitchik says Chaim Sofer never could have said it. It's hearsay. How could you accuse the great Rabbeinu HaKadosh, who wrote the Mishnah, of carrying out a personal act of revenge and a grudge by kicking them out of the Mishnah? That can't be the reason. So therefore, what is the reason? Very bizarre that the most precious mitzvah of all doesn't even rate a little Mishnah, let alone a tractate like Purim. Says Rav Soloveitchik as follows, ingenious. He quotes a Gemara in Gittin, page 60. The oral Torah is not permitted to be written down. There's a pasuk in the end of Parshas Kisisa that the oral Torah must remain oral. So why did Rebbe write it down? So the Gemara in Gittin, page 60 says, he saw that the oral Torah was being forgotten. People didn't take their spirulina. They were forgetting. And Eis Lasos Hashem, there's a pasuk in Tehillim, there's a time you have to act for God, even if you go against the Torah. So he had no choice. He had to write it down, Connie, the lesser of two evils. You want the Torah to be forgotten? So the lesser of two evils, he wrote it down. Listen to this ingenious Rav Soloveitchik Zatzal. So the whole heter to write down the oral Torah is only because what? Being forgotten. He says Hanukkah happened close to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's time. Hanukkah took place about 2174 years ago. Rebbe lived about 2,000 years ago. So the Hanukkah miracle, when Rebbe wrote the Mishnah, was relatively what? Fresh and popular. It's less than 200 years from Rebbe's time. So you know why he didn't write Hanukkah in the Mishnah? He was not allowed to write it. The whole had to write the oral Torah because people were forgetting. Hanukkah was so popular and so fresh in people's minds when Rebbe wrote the Mishnah, he had no heter to write it down because people, David, were not forgetting. It was so popular. Everybody loves Hanukkah. So therefore what? You know why he didn't write it down? Because he had no permission to write it down. Gittin, page 60 says the whole heter to write the Mishnah was the Yidden were forgetting. So the laws of Purim they were forgetting. Purim was centuries before Hanukkah. But when Rebbe wrote the Mishnah, Hanukkah was still fresh and popular in people's minds. So therefore he couldn't write it down. He had no permission. Isn't that beautiful? Ooh. That's the great Rav Soloveitchik. Takes wide shoulders to say that Chaim Sofer never said that, because you can't say that Rebbe, the great sage and Rabbeinu HaKadosh, would carry a personal vendetta against the Maccabees. But that's what they do say, Rav Avram, the name of Chaim Sofer. Okay. What? It's verbally. Chaim Sofer never wrote it. So Rav Soloveitchik says it must be hearsay. Right? The Talmud who said it over must have had a bad hair day, and he didn't hear properly. But it's not written nowhere in his name, but it's repeated orally.
Also,
yes?
is the symbol of Torah Shabbat.
It's a symbol of Torah Shabbat Peh.
That's another reason why you couldn't write it.
It's a symbol of Torah Shabbat Peh, that's right. What symbol of Torah Shabbat Peh? Beautiful. Why couldn't they use the oil? Who says, nowhere in the written Torah does it say you can't use Tama oil? Doesn't say nowhere in the Chumash Reb Zalman you can't use Tama oil. That's the oral Torah. Light my fire. It has to be Shem and Tor. So that's the symbol of what? Of Torah Shebal Peh. Nachon? It's a symbol of Torah Shebal Peh. Interesting. Right? That's right. That's right. Now, or is Gematria 207, which is Gematria Raz. What does Raz mean in Hebrew? Secret. Coinky dinky? Or is Gematria Raz. Secret. What's the secret of the light of Hanukkah? I'm a soul, man. We all have an endless light in us. That's the great secret. Only the body dies. The soul, we all shine on. Or Gematria 207, Gematria Raz. That's the great secret. B'nai Yissaschar says it's our obligation lefarsem hasod, to publicize the secret that we are the endless light. We're part of the endless light. It's a secret. Who knows about it? Who cares? I don't see the soul. Who cares about the soul, Alan? 7 to 8 days a year, I have to publicize that secret. The secret of the Or, Gematria Yesod, by publicizing it, by playing it up that I'm a soul man. Oh. And therefore, there's no mitzvah to put your matzah in the window. There's a mitzvah to put your shofar in the window. Dafke, the candle, the light of Hanukkah. Wow. Pretty interesting, huh? Now, Neros Hanukkah. Now, the famous question. There was no oil. There was no Ketores either. The Greeks had abolished the entire temple of Odah. So Rabbi Yaakov, there was no shemen for the menorah, but the Ramban says there's a much higher service than the menorah, lighting the Ketoret. There was no Ketoret either. So how come the highest service to Ketoret? So there was no Ketoret either. Why didn't God make a little picture of Ketoret appear miraculously? Why are you so obsessed with the shemen and the menorah? The Ketoret service is more important than what? Than the shemen. And there was no Ketoret either, so why not make Ketoret appear? So the answer is, the word shemen is an acronym. You know what acronym means? CIA, FBI. IRA. Oh, the IRS. Oh, ay. Can't cash an American check. Right. Shemen is an acronym. Which 3 mitzvot did the Greeks make it a capital punishment to keep? Shabbat, Mila, Nida. The Greeks zeroed in on these 3 mitzvot, and they caught a Jew observing Shin, Shabbat, Mem, Mila, or Nun, Nida, they would execute them.
How about Rosh Chodesh?
Part of Shabbos. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you 1 minute. Why did the Greeks zero in on these 3 mitzvot, Rabbi Yaakov? If you want to sum up Judaism in 1 word, it's shemen. What's Judaism all about? Kedushas Hazman, Kedushas Haguf. Shabbat and Rosh Chodesh and Yom Tov represents Kedushat Hazman, that the Jew has the awesome power to sanctify time, kill time, waste time. Shabbat, we have the power to sanctify time.
We don't sanctify Shabbos.
Well, we do, by lighting the candles. Okay. But anyway, Mila and Nida. Mila and Nida represents what? Kedushat Haguf. That's Judaism in a nutshell. Sanctifying time, sanctifying the body, all the mitzvahs have to fall into that class, David. So the Greeks were very smart. They were evil genius. By eradicating Shemen, Shabbat, Mila, Nida, the entire Jewish religion would be abolished, chas v'sholom. Right? So therefore they zeroed in and made it capital punishment to observe Shabbat, observe Mila, Nida. That's Judaism. Kedushat Hazman, Kedushat Haguf. So therefore God chose what? To manifest his miracle on the Shemen. to testify that the Maccabees were not fighting for glory or for booty. They were fighting a war of Shemen, a holy war. They even got that from us, Doshi. They were fighting the original holy war. The war to what? To keep Shemen. To what? To wipe out the forces of darkness that were zeroing in on Shemen. What is Shemen? Shabbat Milanida, that's Judaism. So God testified that Maccabees were not fighting for personal glory. They were fighting the original holy war. The war to what? Keep Judaism from being abolished. And that's symbolized by Dafka Shemen, and even though there was no Ketores either. That's God's testimony. So these great people, they made great mistakes. After they won the great victory, they should have handed over the reins of Malchus to whom? Yehuda. They refused, and they were punished for it. And yet God chose to make this miracle through them, but then it all went wrong. So the question is, it all went wrong, so why, Ruvain, do we still continue to what? Observe Hanukkah. The temple was destroyed, right? There's no temple anymore. And the Maccabees themselves later on, their children sinned. So why do we still observe Hanukkah? Why continue to celebrate? That's something hard to understand. When the temple was destroyed, Abraham, they should have canceled Hanukkah, right? But again, the idea is that the light of Hanukkah shines beyond the temple. Every Jewish soul is a light of Hanukkah. Even though we have no temple, our neshama continues to shine despite the loss of the temple. It testifies that the Jewish soul is eternal. Even though there's no building, temple's destroyed, but the Jewish soul can never be destroyed. So therefore we continue to observe Hanukkah even though the temple is destroyed. Yes?
How come there is such a difference with
What?
they should have stopped Hanukkah?
What?
Since the temple was destroyed, why should they have stopped Hanukkah?
Because,
That was the whole point of the celebration.
So that part, but they still had Hanukkah.
but why?
Destroyed,
But why?
continued on.
There's no more temple. So I'm saying that the Hanukkah miracle is beyond the temple. The miracle of the Jewish soul being eternal. The temple's not eternal, David, but the Jewish soul is eternal. We all shine on. That's why we continue to what? To celebrate Hanukkah. We are celebrating the eternity of the Jewish soul, which shines forever, despite the abomination, despite the Balkari, right? The Jewish soul will shine forever. Yes?
You brought out a very good point regarding
Only one?
a lot of many books.
Thank you.
It's always
Not finished yet. Ooh,
a pleasure
time.
to be here. So anything,
Yeah.
You mentioned that Hanukkah,
Yeah.
as a result of the Hashmonaim having made a very big tragedy.
Right. They made a tragic mistake.
And these were the very same people who were the ones that brought about the mace and the miracle that we should have the opportunity to live on.
Yes.
Why is it this is a paradigm in Jewish history that the people that bring about these great things ultimately bring about our destruction?
That's a great question. Great people have great egos. And great people make great mistakes. What?
This happened
What do you mean all the time?
with the Second Temple. We were supposed to come back at the Second Temple period
Right.
with Yehuda never apologizing to Yosef. I mean, we find
Right.
people committing these mistakes.
The great people make great mistakes. I don't know.
But these are the people that theoretically could bring about what we're expecting, what we're demanding, what we need, ultimately.
So according to the Ramban, if the Maccabees would have handed over the Melucha to Yehuda, Rabbi Yaakov, the second temple never would have been destroyed. And Mashiach would have come 2,200 years ago.
What would have happened at the time?
Well, that's plan A. We go to plan B.
What about with Ezra?
And Ezra also, that was even earlier, right? So There are many potential Mashiachs that we could have had, but we keep blowing it, right? We keep blowing it, yes? Why? Because great people have great egos. If they didn't have great egos, can they accomplish great things? But it's a double-edged sword. Right? A double-edged sword, correct?
Great people are supposed to have small egos.
But the fact is they have great egos, right? Great people have great, yeah.
Yeah, so there's another reason, another hint to the fact that Hanukkah lives forever.
Go ahead.
Despite the fact that, because we have a Torah, and the Torah is eternal, right? And the 25th word of the Torah is or. The first time it is.
That's right.
Or.
The Bnei Yissaschar says that. The 25th word from Genesis 1:1, Moshe, happens to be what? Or. Symbolizing the 25th what? Now you hear something amazing? Without a Bible codes, now Hanukkah happened centuries after the Torah was given. Centuries after. There should be no reference to Hanukkah in the Torah. Right? The Torah was given centuries before. If you look in Bamidbar Lamed Gimel, verse 29, it says, Vayachnu bechashmona. Now, there, the Torah gives you the itinerary. When the Jews left Cairo on the way to Pisgat Zev, they made 42 stops in the desert. The 25th stop happens to be a place called Chashmona. What's wild is the word Chanukah is an acronym. Chanu Kafei. Chanu means they, the Chashmonoim, rested on Ka. What does Ka mean? 25. And centuries earlier, about 1150 years earlier, the Jews had come to a place in the desert, happened to be just Koinky Dinky, the 25th stop, Vayachnu Chanu Chashmona. Isn't that wild, Avram? Could that be a Koinky Dinky? 1150 years before Hanukkah, if you figure it out, the Torah was given in the year, who's good in math? The Torah is given in the year 2448. Hanukkah happened in the year 3597. Avram, you're good in math. How much is 3597 minus 2448?
1349.
No, about 1150, no? 3597 minus 2448. 1149, right?
You got it, Rob.
1149.
Button, Rob.
See that? 1149. Hanukkah happened 1149 years after what?
After the
So
beginning of the Torah.
the Torah should have no reference to Hanukkah without a Bible codes. Chanu Chashmona, Chanu Kafei. The 25th stop in the desert was a place called Chashmona. So the roadmap. Hafochba, Bafochba, the Kuloba.
Turn it over to
Right? Even Hanukkah, which happened centuries later, was already encoded in the Torah. The roadmap of life, everything is in the Torah. We just have to know what? We just have to know what? Where to look. Vayachnu bechashmona. Any questions, comments?